Dawn R. Sanfilippo, attorney at law.
Hello.
And bankruptcy expert, right?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you a question. We have to share the microphone for this. All right? We went bankrupt here. We can only afford one microphone. There's a political component to this that began in 2005 with all this means testing. You didn't have this before, right?
You did not have it as strictly. There was always a provision that a case could be dismissed if the U.S. Trustee's Office thought it was abusive. But no, prior to 2005, you did not have this means test.
And I take it we're living with this now because of lobbying from the credit card companies who want to see if they can squeeze a little bit more money out of poor people.
Unfortunately, that's the reality. They sold the legislature on the fact that high wage earners were filing for bankruptcy and squelching on their debts. The reality is the longer they keep someone struggling before they file, the more money the credit card companies make in high interest fees, over the limit fees, late fees, etc. fees.
All right. Now, should means testing be an obstacle to us as bankruptcy attorneys, or is it something you should be able to overcome?
No, not at all.
All right. You do a lot of bankruptcies, right? Have you ever had one bounce where you had to go in through a Chapter 13 due to a means test?
I've had a few that have had to go into, since the 2005 changes, that had to go into a means test, but 90% of the time they would need to file the Chapter 13 for other reasons anyway. Either they wanted to strip off, which we'll talk about later, a second mortgage, or they want to catch up on arrears on their mortgage and save their home.
And the dirty little secret here is that they could start off with a Chapter 13 to begin with, and then later on convert it into a Chapter 7 without a means test, right?
Yes, there's no means test on a conversion. You need to have a good faith try at the 13, but if you get your debtor fails to make their payments, the case will either be dismissed or the debtor is entitled to convert from a 13 to a 7.
Can you take us in through the form, step by step, line by line, so we'll know what to look for and how we can take somebody who has fairly high income and make sure they pass the means test?
Absolutely.
All right, let's get started.
Court's website and actually sat there and filled them out, because that's what that's what will make the seminar make sense. The reality is you will plug these numbers into boxes, screens that just ask you questions. That will plug it into the form. But unless you understand the form, then you don't know where to go on the boxed questions to find the extra deductions. So okay. Now in the forms book, you'll see the very first one, I just checked that it was non-consumer debt. I have the means test tables and charts. Okay. What I did for my first example was I created a mythical family of 4 people. And I gave them monthly income for 6 people. And they passed the means test. I purposely made it a family of 4 and gave them monthly income for 6, and I'll show you how they passed the means test. Okay, this is our couple, Lee and New, and they're married, and the last name is married. They live in Hackensack, Bergen County. This just shows you the voluntary petition, how that box will be checked on the first page. And this is what your form 22A will look like. This box is checked. They're non-consumer debts, i.e. business debts, disabled veteran or national reservist. I haven't ever had one of these. And this is, for anyone who deals with the Servicemen Civil Relief Act, this is a much broader time frame than under the Servicemen Civil Relief Act. You should be asking everybody if they're a disabled veteran or a national reservist, and then you have to go read the code. There's restrictions on when the debt was incurred. Here, this is when we say the presumption does not arise, and this is the case I want to go through line by line. Okay, to make life easy, I've got the couple. They have 2 kids. You can't see it here, but it's checked on earlier in the petition. And this dollar amount, if you look off that chart, is the monthly income for a family of 6. So you plop that, to make life easy, I made
How
it
much was that, by the way, Dawn?
$9,676.
Where did that number come from?
That number comes from the federal government and changes periodically. You can hop to these charts from either the trustees' websites, the bankruptcy court's websites, and if you have a program, they update, and you buy the service plan, they update them automatically. Now, the next box is, this is what I would consider W-2 income. The next box is for if your debtor operates a business. You have to take the gross receipts, so whatever their gross sales are, and then subtract the ordinary costs of business, and then you get what they're bringing home as a net. On that, I get from my debtors P&Ls, profit and loss statements, and they're usually in a shambles. Usually have to send them to an accountant to fix the P&Ls and make sure they take into account things that all business costs, and then back out the things that aren't business costs that their business is paying for. Line 5 is rents and other real property. Debtors are in a 2-family house. That's not uncommon. You add that in this box. Again, gross receipts. There are costs that debtors have incurred in renting. So, for example, if they have snow removal and they're renting an apartment, they're paying $1,000. Maybe their apartment's worth $1,200. Their renter pays $1,000, and they have snow removal. You can deduct some of the costs of that. Again, that will bring down the gross amounts and then help you pass the means test. So don't overlook those things. You're just looking for, landscaping, things like that. Examples I've had where there are elderly individuals or individuals who are disabled who really can't do the snow removal themselves. So, and you absolutely would have to have it if you have a tenant. Interest, dividends, and royalties. Never had it since 2005. Haven't had a debtor that's come in with interest, dividends, and royalties. Pension and retirement income goes on line 7. And any amounts paid by another person or entity on a regular basis for household expenses of the debtor or the debtor's dependents, including child support paid for that purpose. That's line 8. This, as a tangent, there are often third parties living in the house. Again, God bless the legislature. They think that, there's the debtor, the debtor's spouse, 2.5 kids, a dog, and a cat. Like that was my family with my cousins. That's not what's going on now in the world. You're seeing 3 generations living together. So you'll have as many as 4 income earners in a household, and then the expenses have to be parceled out. So any other income that's coming into that household, you need to put in at line 8. More often than not, that becomes an issue in saving the debtor's home. So the debtors are trying to save their home, and in order to propose a plan that's feasible, they actually need to include this income to make the plan financially feasible. Everybody with me there?
Because that'll show that they have the wherewithal to pay the mortgage.
Yes. I mean, we're here for purposes of this seminar in demonstrating the means test and how to keep you in a 7. Ironically, line 8 will come up more often where you need to put money here.